with all of these images, all of this information about what we should expect, what we should do, what we shouldn't do in modern dating. But if you are navigating this scene alone, if you are dating and you're not getting the results that you want from your dating and relationship efforts, it starts to I'll never forget the first time that I decided that I was going to be intentional about attracting love for my life. So it was, I don't want to date myself, it was several years ago. And it was around the time when vision boards first started really getting a lot of interest. And so you know what a vision board is. You have this vision for different areas of your life, and then you go and find things that identify with those different areas of your life. And so I decided that I wanted a healthy and fulfilling relationship. I didn't do a whole lot of thinking about what that would look like or how it would feel. I just wanted a healthy relationship. Even though I'd never seen one, I didn't have any examples to pull from. I knew that that's what I wanted, right? So I decided that I was going to create a list of things that I wanted in a mate. And my list had the sum total of one thing on it. I wanted him to go to church. That was it. Because I felt like if he went to church, it was going to solve all of the other issues that I was having. Well, I attracted a guy that went to church. And to this day, that relationship is probably the worst relationship I've ever been in. And I've had some doozies, but it was worse because he was in church every Sunday. But the person that he portrayed in church and in public was somebody totally different behind closed doors. One really egregious issue that we had, a situation that we had, we were going to church for, I think it was watch night service, the service that you go to for New Year's Eve. So you go in around 10 o'clock and you stay until after midnight, and it's Happy New Year and blah, blah, you know, all that. And so I worked that day, and he came to pick me up from work, and we were going to church, and I wore some slacks. I had changed work into some nice blouse and some slacks. And he did not like that I was wearing slacks, and the women in his church did not wear slacks, and he was upset about it, and he let me know in no uncertain terms that he was upset about it. And I mean about it all the way to church. I wouldn't say that I really argued back, but he was really mean, and he was the type of man that when he got upset, he said really mean things. Like, we've been together for some time, and I shared intimate details about my life, and he was the type of person that when he got upset, he would use those things against me. He was just really mean. And so we got to church, and he had been out of church for some time. He had surgery. So he had been out of church for some time, and that was his first time going back to church after the surgery. And he had a position in the church. And so everybody was happy to see him back at service. And so they gave him the mic so that he could, you know, words or whatever. And so he had some words that he thanked that had prayed for him and people that had come by to see him. And while he was talking, he brought me up, and he said my name. I mean, I thank my friend Arnitris because she's been taking care of me since I've been out, since I had surgery. I mean, she's taking care of me just like a nurse, and I'm so grateful to have her in my life. And I sat there and I was seething because it was like, how dare you berate me all the way to church, and then you get to church and it's like, I'm so happy I have her in my life. And he wasn't lying. I had been taking care of him like a nurse, but there was just this stark difference between how he treated me all the way to church and how he portrayed his for me in church. And it just wasn't a really healthy relationship. You know, said that he was the type of person that when he got mad, he would say anything. He was upset, he would say anything. He felt like anything went. And then not only did he do that, but he was unapologetic about it. When he wasn't upset anymore, he felt like the rift was over, and we would just go back to how things were normally without really having any resolution to what the real conflict was. And so I understood after that relationship that I probably needed to be a little bit more specific about the things that I wanted in a relationship. And so I could probably say that I was having a little bit of an identity crisis. If you are going through life and it just doesn't apply to your love and relationships, if you're not getting the results that you want in any area of your life, it starts to make you think that maybe you don't deserve the things that you desire. It starts to make you think that you're worthy. You begin to look at others who have those things, and you're wondering, what they're doing differently that is allowing them to just attract these things into their lives. It causes a bit of an identity crisis, because it's like, do I deserve the things that I want? Who am I? But you are designing an elevated love brand. You take into account all of your experiences up until now, and you want to not only focus on the things that you don't want, and although that is important, but you want to focus more of your attention on the things that you actually do want. And the way that you do that is by taking an assessment of the experiences that you've had up until now. And you take an account of the relationships that you've had and those things that you have experienced that you want to continue to have in your life. That is an essential part of designing your elevated love brand, because you take an account of the things that you actually want, and you ensure that the things that you want, the qualities that you desire in a mate, you have the qualities that complement those things that you desire. And so if you find yourself navigating love and relationships and not getting the results that you desire, you probably want to take some time to identify exactly what it is that you desire. So some of the symptoms of a love brand identity crisis would be that, number one, of the experiences, some of the relationships that you have, you are kind of unclear about what it is that you truly want. Because after that experience that I had with the guy in church, I still wonder, do I really want to date somebody who goes to church? It wasn't that I didn't want to date someone that goes to church. I wanted to date someone who not only went to church, but they actually lived by the principles that we would consider to be Christian principles. So I didn't want to date someone who treated me one way in public and treated me some totally way in private. I didn't want to be in a relationship with someone who, when he was upset, could just say the most mean and hateful things to me, and then when he was okay, just act like it never happened, who wasn't accountable or who wasn't able to apologize. None of those things align with people that we would think go to church every Sunday. You would think that if you go and you sit your butt in the pew in church every Sunday, that at some point the things that are being taught, you are applying them to your life. But we all know people who are in the church every time the doors are open, but the lives that they live aren't aligned with the things that they say that they are, the things that they say that they believe. So one of the symptoms of having a love brand identity crisis is that you start to question what it is you really want. You aren't sure what it is you really want. If the things that you say that you want, you could choose people who are the opposite of those things, you may be having a love brand identity crisis. If you are beginning to wonder if you even deserve to have the love that you desire, you may be having a love identity crisis. The fact that you're even here watching this video is an indication that you deserve the love that you desire. And I'm willing to go out on a limb and say, it's not your fault that you have not, up until this moment, attracted that love. Because maybe you don't come from a healthy love. I didn't come from a healthy love. I did not have any examples that I could pull from in my personal life that mirrored the type of love that I desired. So up until the point that I recognized that I did not have any examples, and that the common denominator in all of my relationships, I wasn't really, I'm responsible, but I wasn't aware of my contribution to the state of both my life and my love and my relationships. But the moment that I was aware that I could create the type of love that I desired, I could create the type of life that I desired, that life and love wasn't just happening to me, I was an active participant in it. At that moment, I had the power, I took the power back in my love life. And so I became very, very intentional about the type of relationship that I desired. So if you are unclear about the type of relationship that you desire, if you are starting to wonder if you deserve the type of relationship, or even you're starting to wonder if it will ever happen for you, then you may be in a love brand identity crisis. And let's talk about some of the things that contribute outside of the relationships that we have experienced in the past. Some other things, there are some other contributing factors to a love brand identity crisis. One of those things is social media, because we have so many examples of what love should be. There are so many conversations about what love isn't, about there being P in the dating pool, about 50-50, about what femininity, about masculinity, about what to bring to the table, what men should do, should they pay for everything? Much information. We are almost on an information overload. And if you're going from one thing to the next thing and you're not taking time to understand what will work for you, the type of relationship that will complement your lifestyle, then it can cause an identity crisis. If you have so many choices about the types of relationships that you want. Do you want a casual relationship? Do you want a committed relationship? Do you want to try polyamory? Do you want to be monogamous? Do you want, so many choices. All of those choices can cause us to kind of we don't know what we want. We don't know if we're coming or we're going. Social media, again, all of these we have. In the past few months, we've had relationships that many of us have admired from afar that have imploded in front of our eyes. These people, we would call them relationship goals. And now that the curtain is being pulled back and we're seeing what has really been going on behind the scenes, and maybe not so much seeing what's going on behind the scenes, for me, it's really important, because sometimes relationships can just run their course, right? But that doesn't mean that it has to end. Someone has to be the villain and someone has to be the victim. We could come together for a time, love each other for a time, accomplish whatever goals that we accomplish during that time, and still have love and honor for each other when the relationship ends. We don't have to end on a bad note. But when I look at some of these relationships, I'm less sad about the relationship coming to an end than I am about some of the ways that they treat each other after the relationship ends. A red flag for me, if I'm dating someone or if I'm vetting a potential client or customer, I ask about past relationships, and I pay attention to the way that they talk about their ex. I pay attention to that they use, because it's important to know how people act when the relationship is over, when the access to that person has shifted, has changed. And so it's important to know how people act or talk about the ones that they claim to have loved at some time. One of the instances that really comes to mind for me that came up in recent months was Shawnee and Shaquille O'Neal. And she talked, there was a snippet, and she had a book. She was on a press run about her book. And she talked about how I don't remember if it was she had never loved him or she had never been in love with him. But I thought it was really odd that she would describe her relationship in that manner. They were together for years. They had several children together. And it may be true that she was in love with him. It was, I think it dishonored what they accomplished together. If nothing else, it meant to me that she did not consider how saying this, even though it may have been true, she did not consider how saying this would affect their children. It was a snippet. Everybody was talking about, well, not everybody, but a lot of people were talking about it. I talked about it. But again, there is a way that you can speak your experiences in a relationship without dishonoring the relationship. I try to, when I talk about my relationships a lot as a relationship educator and consultant, I pull from my personal experiences a lot, but I try to tell it in a way that one, that cannot be identified, and two, that it doesn't dishonor the relationship, because at some point in time, I thought that I loved that person. What love meant for me at that time, I loved them. So it does me no good. It does them no good to dishonor that. You know, the example of my first relationship where I wanted to be intentional and write down what I wanted in a man. And I said I wanted a man that went to church, and I attracted a man that went to church. I took on the ownership. I got exactly what I wanted. I wasn't intentional. His character matching Christian principles. I wasn't intentional about saying that I needed him to align with what he was learning in church. I did not say that I wanted someone who was accountable and who could apologize and who could communicate effectively, who navigate conflict resolution. And so I take ownership in my part in that relationship. I am grateful for what it taught me. I'm grateful for that experience. I will still say, and I've said this to him, this is the worst relationship that I've ever been in. But at the same time, harping on what they could have done differently does me no good. That's an exercise in futility. But what I can do is take from that experience and teach you. What I can do is take from that experience and decide how I want to ensure that that doesn't happen for me again. So when we talk about your elevated love brand, it's going to take considering the totality of your relationship resume, your experiences in past relationships, those skills that you have developed as relationships that have not worked. One of the videos that we have coming up is going to be about redefining success in relationships, because I think a lot of times we are conditioned to think that success in relationship is one thing, but I don't think that a man's ending necessarily means that it wasn't successful. You came together for a time and you accomplished what you were intended to accomplish, and you got an experience that you can apply moving forward, right? So we talked about what an elevated love brand is. We talked about what an elevated love brand's identity crisis is, and we have talked about some of the factors that contribute to an elevated love brand identity crisis. And so in our next video, we're going to talk about some ways that we can overcome this love brand identity crisis, and we're going to give you some practical tips. This channel is not about fluff. It is about practical tips and insights that can help to move you closer to the love that you desire and deserve. So next week, we're going to be in part 2 of the love brand identity crisis, overcoming challenges in modern dating. And we're going to talk about some practical tips to move you closer to that love that you desire. If you have any topics that you would love to hear me discuss, then you can always leave me a comment down below, or you can send me an email, arnitris@arnitrislstrong.com, and I always respond to those emails myself, and I will consider adding that topic to the channel. So we'll see you again. I am just getting started. You don't know how much I have poured this information to create this video, how I have wanted it to be perfect and do all of these tech issues with tech things, with the call outs and all of those things. But I decided that I was just going to press record, that done was going to be better than perfect. And we will perfect these videos along the way. So I am glad that you are here and you are taking this journey with me. Love Elevated TV is you, the single